My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. In 1883, Emma Lazarus wrote the sonnet, The New Colossus. Her precious words are inscribed on a bronze plaque at the base of the Statue of Liberty. The words read, "Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gate shall stand a mighty woman with a torch whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp," she cries with silent lips. "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." For many generations of Americans, these words were also inscribed in their hearts, recognizing that other than the indigenous people of this fair land, we are all the descendants of immigrants. Yet recently there seems to be a memory lapse, a forgetting of how immigrants built this country with their sweat, toil, tears, blood, and dreams, and a rejection based upon fear and ignorance of the value of those who would come join us in this purely American adventure. What can we do to restore the memories, eradicate the fear, and inform those who have been misled about the seeds of greatness from foreign lands that blossomed and continue to flourish in our country? My guests this week on Destination Unlimited, Paul Avgerinos, along with Deepak Chopra and Kabir Sehgal, have collaborated on a beautiful collection of poems and songs inspired by American immigrants called Home, Where Everyone is Welcome. Paul is a first-generation American whose father Kostas immigrated from Greece to the United States in 1938. Paul is a Grammy-winning artist, composer, producer, and engineer with 23 critically acclaimed New Age albums to his credit. He is active in creating scores for a variety of television shows. He's a graduate of the Peabody Conservative of Johns Hopkins University and runs the Studio Unicorn. Kabir Sehgal is also a first-generation American, and his parents are both from India. He's a New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling author of 8 books, such as Coined and Jazzocracy. He's a multi-Grammy and Latin Grammy award-winning producer. He's a U.S. Navy veteran and works in corporate strategy at First Data Corporation in New York. Deepak Chopra needs little introduction. He was an immigrant from India who moved to the United States in 1970 and became a citizen in 1984. He's a world-renowned pioneer in integrative medicine, founder of the Chopra Center, author, lecturer, music composer. Time magazine labeled him one of the top 100 heroes and icons of the century. It is my pleasure to welcome Paul Avgerinos and to discuss this wonderful project, Home, Where Everyone is Welcome. Good evening, Paul.
Hi, Victor. It's great to be with you. Thank you.
And great to have you with me. And that was a long introduction. I apologize for extending it so far, but I think it was important to get that message out.
No, it was very beautiful. It's wonderful to hear the full text of that poem. Most people don't ever get to hear the very powerful opening of that famous poem.
And I think it's something that every one of us should take out once a year, perhaps on Independence Day, and read that poem and reconnect with the energy that it represents. So let's start with you and your family story. Please tell us about your father, Kostas, and his immigration experience.
Right. So my father grew up on this beautiful Greek island of Kefalonia. It's the largest island between Greece and Italy. And he loved engineering, and he made his way to Athens and worked on buses during the day and took night classes. And eventually he graduated and he got a job in London. And his first big assignment was they put him on a freighter going from London over to Portland. And it was his first time out on a big ocean-going freighter. And going through the Panama Canal, he got appendicitis and almost died. But the captain wouldn't let him off the ship because he was afraid he was going to lose his chief engineer. And so he survived, thank God. He made it around to Portland. And in Portland, he jumped ship and he got on a Greyhound bus and went down to Oakland where his sister was living. And she took him in, took him to the hospital, got his operation and saved his life. And then World War II started. And that freighter, the Nicholas D.L., was actually sunk by a German submarine on the way back to England. So it was a pretty amazing sequence of events. And so finding himself in America, he learned English, he got his U.S. engineering degrees, and eventually made his way to the East Coast where he worked in the defense industry, helping to defeat fascism in World War II. So and that's where he met my mother in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. So it's really a classic immigrant story. A young man coming with absolutely nothing and not even the skill of English, and yet he went on to have his own company that employed dozens of American citizens, and he got numerous patents, and he made a good success of himself and contributed grandly to the United States of America. And so, that's really what most immigrants do, is they work very hard, actually harder often than the people that have been here longer. And so it's a beautiful story, and these are the stories that we want to celebrate, that we are celebrating in our book and album.
Absolutely. And often immigrants would take on jobs that others wouldn't want to do.
Exactly.
Now, as you were growing up, what concepts and ideas did your father impart to you that shaped your personal experience?
Well, he was just an amazing man, how hard he worked and how strong his values were. And I never forget one night we were walking out under the stars. I must have been about, 9 years old or something. And he was holding my hand and we were looking up at the beautiful stars. And he said, Paul, hitch your wagon to the stars, but keep your feet on the ground. Mm. And I said to myself, well, of course, 9 years old, I didn't really appreciate it fully. But later, as the years went by, I've lived by those words, and I've maintained the very highest ideals, but I keep my feet on the ground and I work very, very hard, and I always pay attention to the practical details. And so that's just one example of his excellent fatherly guidance.
And isn't that the message for everyone, that we should be firmly grounded in the world that we live in, and yet always look up and maintain those aspirations for something greater for ourselves?
Exactly. We can do so much more than we realize as long as we stay focused and grounded and work steadily towards our higher ideals and higher goals.
And that really is the basis of the immigrant story.
It certainly is. And, my father knew that very well. He knew that America treated him quite well. He always used to say, what an amazing country. When he first came to America, he said, look at all these big, beautiful buildings and these lovely cities, and people are so kind and polite to me. And he appreciated that. He realized what a gift this opportunity was, and most immigrants are like that. They appreciate many things that older Americans might take for granted.
And the appreciation and the reception that your father received and my grandparents received is something that was part of the generation that they came into, and not the same as the generation that we're dealing with today, and we'll discuss that a little bit later on. Now, one of the poems in the Home Project was inspired by your father. Would you please share that with us?
Oh, I'd love to. So we wrote a poem called Odyssey because the island my father is from is the historical home of Ulysses. In Homer's Odyssey, Ulysses is the king of Kephallonia and Ithaca, and this is the place that my father is actually from. So this is, of course, this Odyssey poem had a huge impact on me as a child. So the poem goes this way: Odyssey, inspired by Konstantinos Avgerinos. Long after Trojan War, but before World War, he embarks upon his own Odyssey to discover a mythology. Where you're from matters less than what you believe. Protected by Athena's gaze, avoiding Poseidon's wrath, he sails west, where he disembarks to find strength, health, safety, and his Penelope.
Beautiful, Paul. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's truly a tribute to your dad.
Oh, thank you, Victor. Yeah, well, growing up, reading Homer's Odyssey and then eventually visiting the island home of my father, and seeing all these fantastic sights made quite an impact on me. I did a whole album about it back in 1990. It's called Muse of the Round Sky. And, it's dedicated to Homer's Odyssey. It's tone poems based upon many of the most famous chapters of Homer's Odyssey.
It's interesting. It seems that Greek people as a whole have the sea and seafaring as part of their soul.
It's very true. Well, we're an island of a nation of thousands of islands. And you really can't go far in Greece without encountering the ocean.
Absolutely. My guest tonight on Destination Unlimited, Paul Avgerinos. He is the collaborator with Deepak Chopra and Kabir Sehgal on Home, Where Everyone is Welcome. And we'll be back with Paul and more on Home after these words on the OMTimes radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
In the wake of a disaster, what one thing can you send that will help people the most? A blanket, a tent, a sandbag, a doctor. Actually, if you send a monetary donation, you send all these things. Even a small donation can make a big impact and can quickly become exactly what people affected by disaster need most.
In the wake of a hurricane, your monetary donation can make a huge difference to those in need. To donate, visit supporthurricanerelief.org. That's supporthurricanerelief.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
And we're back on Destination Unlimited. My guest this evening, Paul Avgerinos, who collaborated with Deepak Chopra and Kabir Sehgal on a beautiful project called Home, Where Everyone is Welcome, poems and songs inspired by American immigrants. So, Paul, talking about your own musical aspirations, how did they develop?
Well, like a lot of young musicians, I started out playing in the school system. I played trumpet and bass and guitar in local rock bands and stuff. But around the age of 15, 16, I started realizing that music had a great spiritual power besides its more obvious powers to uplift and entertain and comfort. But I started realizing that music was actually a spiritual path that one could awaken through music, could expand one's consciousness through playing and composing and performing music in a very spiritually focused way. And so that was a big breakthrough. And everything started changing very quickly at that point for me.
And were you exposed to Gregorian chants as a young man?
I was very blessed to hear all kinds of music. And one of the artists that really took me to a whole other level was Mahavishnu John McLaughlin, who I heard when I was 16. And at first I was just dumbfounded. I couldn't even understand what he was doing. It just seemed so complicated and sophisticated. But of course I grew into it, and that he's one of the main reasons why I went into music professionally. There's no doubt about it. I mean, every musician is going to have a few people they can name on one hand that just turn the book, turn the page for them and just made all the difference in the world. It's just a very blessed experience.
Now, he had been a disciple of a guru and...
Sri Chinmoy.
Yes, Sri Chinmoy, who actually, I live in the neighborhood where Sri Chinmoy's facility still is prior to, and he was inspired by Sri Chinmoy, and then also he had introduced Carlos Santana to Sri Chinmoy, and a lot of the music that came out of that experience was very transcendental.
It's very true. And the amazing thing was every Saturday, Sri Chinmoy would come by car up to Norwalk, Connecticut, which was about 20 minutes from where I was growing up in Wilton, Connecticut. And so I used to go down to these meditations and sit in a room with Sri Chinmoy and about 15 other devotees. And one day we came in for meditation, and standing at the front was Carlos Santana, all dressed in white. and Guru said, "Look at little Carlito. Oh, what a good boy he is. You should all be like him." And of course, a lot of us were musicians, so we all said, "Yeah, we want to be just like him." It was so funny.
And the music that came out of that period of time was really transcendent. It was breathtaking music.
Yeah, it was a very special time of music, jazz rock fusion, new hybrids that had never been heard before. Very powerful and transformative time. Very blessed time to be coming up as a musician, because the influences were so strong and rich and all around.
And that set the seed in you for creating New Age soundscapes. Talk a little bit about that, please.
Well, I started out doing a lot of jazz and jazz rock fusion and classical music and all to build my skill as a musician. But then I realized that what I really wanted to do was to help other people to be more peaceful and more centered and meditative and contemplative, and to help their spiritual awakening. And so by creating a music that helped my spiritual awakening and my contemplative nature, I was able to serve a larger purpose. And this is what often happens with people in New Age music. Like my friend Deuter, he started out doing this really as just part of his own spiritual path with Osho in Pune, India. As a monk there, it was part of his meditative service to the community. But then, we all realized that, well, this can serve a much larger population if we share it, with the public. And so that's a beautiful place to be able to serve a higher purpose, and for in my case, to earn a very good living from it. This is a great blessing for me.
I've heard, studied with many wonderful spiritual teachers, including several gurus, and prior to that time, when I heard someone say yoga, I was thinking of hatha yoga and the asanas and the positions that people would assume in preparation for meditation and in conjunction with meditation. But one of the gurus said, you know what? That doesn't have to be your yoga. Your yoga can be whatever connects you with spirit, and that can include music, that can include writing, that can include the study of Sanskrit. So literally, yoga could be anything that connects your spirit to that energy.
That's very true, Victor. And really the way the rishis invented Hatha yoga was really simply to help us to relax the body and to stay calm so that we could sit quietly and do other forms of higher yoga like bhakti, devotional yoga, or karma yoga to work clearly. So Hatha yoga is a beautiful thing, but it's really just one of the aspects of a yoga practice.
So what is the secret to composing music that allows the mind to both expand and be fully present?
Well, for me, it starts with a very clear intention, or what the Indians would call a sankalpa, where you make a very positive intention, or we might call it an affirmation. And then to quiet the mind, quiet the emotions, quiet the ego, and allow the spirit, the higher spirit, the universal consciousness to flow through you, to use me, to use the artist as an instrument. And so the Paul, the I, the small I disappears, and the music just flows through me, and I am a servant of that music. I give it voice, or I help it to come, like a midwife, I help it to come to life. But it's not coming from me, it's coming from a much higher, bigger place, and just happens to be flowing through me on the local level, as Deepak would say. The local aspect is Paul, but what's coming through is pure consciousness.
And can we share with our listeners an example of your music?
Well, I think a nice piece to share would be River from the Home album. This is dedicated to the wonderful Audrey Hepburn, another amazing American immigrant. And I think that would be a nice piece to play because it sums up the peaceful, loving feel of the album.
And from Home, where everyone is welcome, River.
Lush harps, shimmering downstream, gentle chorus among huckleberries, flickering guitar, serene river, evergreen heart.
River from Home, where everyone is welcome, poems and songs inspired by American immigrants, a collaboration between Deepak Chopra, Kabir Sehgal, and my wonderful guest, Paul Avgerinos. Paul, please tell listeners where they can find out more about Home and your work.
Well, sure. The main website for Home is home-everyone-welcome.com. So that's home-everyone-welcome.com. And then, of course, if you search this on Amazon or iTunes or any place, actually, it's available everywhere. Barnes & Noble and all the major stores have it.
And thank you, Paul. We're going to be back with more of Paul Avgerinos and Home, where everyone is welcome, after these words from the OMTimes Radio Network.
You're listening to OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
For millions of kids across America, when school lunches end, hunger begins. And summer isn't fun when you're hungry. Are you hungry to help? Go to feedingamerica.org/hungry to help for ways your family can pitch in, including fun projects your kids can do to help end hunger. That's feedingamerica.org/hungry to help. Let's make summer the season to end hunger. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Bill Maher. I can find humor in almost anything, but one thing I never laugh about is cruelty to animals. If you don't get the joke either, write People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, 501 Front Street, Norfolk, Virginia, 23510.
And we're back on Destination Unlimited. My guest tonight, Paul Avgerinos, who collaborated with Deepak Chopra and Kabir Sehgal on a beautiful collection called Home, where everyone is welcome, poems and songs inspired by American immigrants. Paul, how did your collaboration with Deepak and Kabir come about?
Well, Kabir and I were talking last year about doing a project together, and I was thinking of doing something called Oneness, which would be a tour of all the major faiths and philosophies and showing how they had in common at their heart love and compassion. And as the political situation thickened and intensified, Kabir started thinking, well, wouldn't it be great to do something about immigrants and about our wonderful history that we have here? Because Kabir and I are both first generations, and we knew that Deepak is an immigrant himself, and so we all started talking, the three of us, and the project came about in a very serendipitous way and very quickly too. So it was just wonderful. It just was meant to be. It very much felt like it was meant to be.
It's like the Buddhist concept of readiness in time, when everything comes together at a specific time and the people who are supposed to be involved in it are together, then the magic happens.
Yeah, exactly like that. It's very beautiful.
Now, the Home Project, as you intimated, comes at a time when xenophobia is being promulgated by some of our leadership. Were any of you concerned about this, or did it in fact make the inspiration greater?
It's very true. We all are very concerned about this, and we felt that the best response was a positive response to as Deepak says, you can't fight darkness with darkness, but if you just shine your light more brightly, it will help to illuminate the darkness, and it will help people to see the contrast between welcoming, compassionate, accepting wisdom, which is expansive and inclusive and feels good because it is good, and the other directions which don't feel good because they're fear-based. And it's a very simple test. If something feels really bad, it is bad. It's based on fear. It's based on the falseness and based on ignorance. And so we were so happy to find this vehicle to contribute a positive message to the discussion, and the thought that the idea that we would like to move the discussion in a more positive direction. Let's talk honestly about the fact that 45% of the S&P 500 companies were formed and founded by immigrants. Let's talk about the fact that your vegetables and fruits that you eat today are harvested by immigrants for very low wages. Let's talk about on and on. Let's replace honest facts with hyperbole and fear-mongering and ignorant innuendo. So, but of course, do it in a loving way. So while we are doing this book of poems and music, we are also active in in various publications with op-ed articles where we're sharing some of the wonderful facts about how wonderful immigrants are and how they are basically the engine of our economic prosperity and our cultural success as a world leader in culture and in entertainment. That comes from immigrants. The founder of Google is an immigrant. I mean, it's the most powerful, innovative company in the world. Wouldn't have been started if he had been banned from coming to America. So there you have it. It's just, it's easy to go on and on with it because it's based on the truth.
Extending that to how many wonderful physicians who have saved countless lives started as immigrants coming to this country. How many people who are spiritual leaders came as immigrants to this country? It just, you can go on and on. But using compassion, because we are people of compassion, extending our compassion and getting into the shoes, let's say, of someone who is an immigrant today. How does that immigrant see and relate to people who were born here and who seem not to understand their culture and experience? What do you think that feels like?
Well, it's hard to actually know exactly what it feels like because I had the blessing of being born here, but we know that it can be very hard. Deepak has related some stories, personal stories of discrimination and misunderstanding about him. But I think it makes them stronger. They just realize that ignorance is not a reflection of them. It's a reflection upon the person that's expressing any type of a prejudice or a unappreciation. And so it's important to stay true to yourself and your values, and eventually these things resolve themselves, although they can be very uncomfortable and painful for people at times. But in the long run, the country will grow stronger and more diverse. It's inevitable that America will continue to become more and more diverse. And, the people that want to go back to some imaginary world that actually never existed, eventually, they will fade out and more open-minded people will take their place. And so it's really just a matter of patience. We have to be patient and compassionate with people. And remember that it's always fear-based. Anytime anyone expresses any anger or hatred or intolerance, it's because they're afraid. There's some deep-seated fear. They're afraid they're going to lose something, or something will be taken away from them, or things will be out of their control. And so it's simply fear-based. And the only remedy for fear is love. As always, love is the answer.
Absolutely. And extending it to the position of the first-generation American who may experience prejudice or intolerance based upon being a different race or having a different faith. How do we address that?
Well, I think it's important to remember that the majority of the American population is very much in favor of diversity, inclusion, acceptance, compassion, tolerance, and oneness. Unfortunately, people forget this because the small amount of people are able to make an inordinate amount of noise and grab the microphone, the public microphone, and make loud and boisterous proclamations, but they do not speak for the American people. Most American people are wonderfully kind and compassionate and loving and kind and giving, and they will give you the shirt off their back. And it's one of the difficulties of this digital age that we live in is that there's a lot of noise in the public discourse, which is very short-lived, and people mistake the short-lived noise for the actual feelings of the country at large. So that's something that we're learning to coexist with in this modern digital age of sound bites and Twitter proclamations and such. So that's something we all have to remember. And talk to each other. You know, don't believe what you're told on Twitter or on Facebook or wherever. Ask your friends and neighbors, how do they feel? You know, talk to each other. That's one of the points of this project, is to get people to ask each other, well, tell me about your family's history. Where is your family from? Oh my gosh, that happened? This happened? Wow, that's amazing. How many incredible stories we have heard working on this project that would just break your heart, and you would just cry in joyful adoration of these amazing immigrants and what they've gone through to bring their generation to America. So that's a real blessing, you know, just to be able to talk and listen to each other in a kind and civil way.
I must share with you that I and my family are very blessed to be living in a part of New York, a neighborhood in Queens, New York, where we have so much diversity and so many immigrants from so many different places and cultures living together side by side, sharing the richness of their culture, sharing the richness of what they bring to this country, including, just to give you an example, on the left side of me, I have people from Croatia. On the right side of me, I have people from India and Pakistan. Across the street from me, I have people from China. I have people from all parts of the world living on this one block here in Queens, New York, all living together in harmony, sharing this wonderful American dream together and sharing the richness of the cultures and the faiths that they brought with them. And it's just truly a miracle, a living miracle right here. And if everyone in the world could come and spend a few hours on my block, what a lesson they would learn. It's just truly amazing.
That's for sure. That's exactly right. That's what Deepak always says. He says, you know, he loves New York City, and he says it's just so amazing. You can walk out in the street and the whole world is there. Every cuisine, every culture, every religion, every belief system and history. It's just so rich, and it's all interacting in creative and fantastic ways. That's the future. That's a good thing. That's a very, very good thing, you know, because then everyone realizes we're all basically the same. What is there to go to war over? Why? What is there to fight over? You're going to fight over yourself. It's really just different aspects of ourselves.
And the foundational rule found in every faith and every religion, the golden rule, do unto others, love each other. My guest is Paul Avgerinos. He's collaborator with Deepak Chopra and Kabir Sehgal in Home, Where Everyone is Welcome, songs and poems inspired by American immigrants. And we'll be back with more of Paul and this wonderful work after these messages on the OMTimes radio network.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Change and growth are part of natural life, and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the OMTimes Experts program. With OMTimes Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
And we're back on Destination Unlimited. My guest this evening, Paul Avgerinos. He's the collaborator with Deepak Chopra and Kabir Sehgal in Home, Where Everyone is Welcome. Paul, how did you folks come up with this lovely format of a book of poems along with a disc of music and meditation?
Well, we thought it would be wonderful to tell the stories of these wonderful immigrants. There's actually 34 poems in the book, and 36 poems in the book, and 12 songs on the album. But we thought we would take a few of our favorite poems and just use little snippets of the poems, key phrases that Deepak could sing or whisper or speak to give a meditative, contemplative space for the listener to find their own home in, whether it's a place or a state of mind.
And Paul and Deepak and Kabir are generously going to share another selection from Home with us. This is called Queen. Give us the background story on this, please.
Well, Queen is inspired by Celia Cruz, the Latin music legend, the queen of salsa music, and one of the artists singing on the track, Marie Nobri, actually met Celia Cruz, and our conga player on the track, Jumbo Cornell, he toured with Celia, and so this is a wonderfully uplifting, lighthearted, happy kind of a track that expresses a lot of the joy of innocence and purity, just enjoying the beauty of music and the beauty of life and love. And so it was a lot of fun working on this track in particular.
And I understand that if you listen, you can hear Deepak singing on this one. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, that was one of the big thrills of this album, was getting to work with Deepak's singing voice. He has a lovely voice, as we all know from his narrations and guided meditations and all. So, but in addition to having him speaking and whispering, I also talked him into singing, and you'll hear him singing, especially on the opening track called Home, and on this track called Queen, he sings quite a bit, and it's just really lovely to be able to share that with you, of course, because Deepak was a huge hero of mine for many, many decades now.
From the disc that comes along with the book of poetry on Home, where everyone is welcome, this is Queen.
Sing through home. Sing with home. Sing home, home. Sing for home.
And that was Queen from the Home Where Everyone is Welcome, poems and songs inspired by American immigrants. Lovely to hear Deepak's voice in there. Thank you for sharing that with us, Paul.
Oh, my pleasure.
Now, aside from your father's poem, do you have a personal favorite?
One of the ones I really like a lot is called Father, and it's inspired by Krishan Chopra, Deepak's father. And it's just, for me, it's just a very transcendental poem that expresses a lot of the deeper wisdom that we have about existence. So that's one that always struck me very strongly.
And who are some of the other luminaries that inspired your poems in this?
Well, we have poems dedicated to Albert Einstein and to Audrey Hepburn and Yo-Yo Ma, and just so many amazing immigrants. And, not all famous people, but people that are inspiring, like Survivor is inspired by William Jimeno, which is he's a Colombian immigrant. He was a first responder in 911, and he rushed into the towers trying to help save people, and everyone in his squad perished except for him. And so we dedicated a poem to him, and the music is called Survivor. And William Jimeno really sums up what it is to be an American immigrant, because these are the people that rush into danger to help protect other Americans. Kabir serves in the military. He tells about how many of the people fighting for America, risking their lives, are not even U.S. citizens, but yet they're out there risking their necks for this country. So I think we should appreciate them more and honor their sacrifice and the tremendous giving that they do. It's not correct, it's not right or dharmic, it's just not right to repay goodness with contempt.
Absolutely, and I think the recent natural disasters that have transpired with the hurricanes and the earthquakes demonstrate clearly that the first responders include immigrants who, as you say, put their life on the line for others, which is the greatest gift anyone can give.
Sure. Look at that dreamer who was in Houston, was out there working without sleep day after day, day and night. And while he's doing that, he hears that his program has been ended. So we need to think more carefully before we take these rash actions. This is one of the plagues of our day and age, that people don't think carefully enough about what they do that affects so many other people. We have to think of others first. As my guru Amma, the hugging saint, says, think of other people, serve other people, do some good for other people, and then you'll find your life gets better. But if you're only thinking of yourself and being self-absorbed like that, nothing good will come of it.
Words to live by, the message from home, where everyone is welcome, poems and songs inspired by American immigrants. Paul, please tell our listeners one more time how they can get this fabulous collection and find out more about you and your work.
Sure. Well, if you Google home, where everyone is welcome, especially if you put in the word Deepak Chopra or just the word Chopra, it will pop up. Endless links will pop up. It's available on Amazon and iTunes and Barnes & Noble and all over the place. And, of course, we have a dedicated website called home-everyone-welcome.com. And thank you very much for this wonderful interview, Victor.
And Paul, thank you for this energy and this beautiful message that the three of you are bringing to the world at a time when we truly need it. And thank you all for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.